Ken and Joelle have just really traveled the globe and they continue to do so. I'm very impressed with their tenacity, their sense of adventure, and some of the places they go. I mean, just the getting there would be more than I could handle. So, kudos to you two for getting to West Papua and look forward to hearing more about it. So please go ahead. Thank you, Joelle and Ken.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and I'm glad you all have joined us. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And as the name says, this is the Not-so-Diabolical birding tour of West Papua that we did in August and September of this year. The actual birding last year, the actual birding tour is called Easy West Papua. That's what Bird Tour Asia thinks about this tour. And about 3 days into the tour, we realized there was nothing easy about this trip. And I mentioned to our bird guide, I said, this trip isn't named right. And Bird Tour Asia also runs a comprehensive tour to West Papua, which is a month long. This was only 3 weeks long. And it just came to me that they really ought to rename the comprehensive tour the Diabolical Tour of West Papua. And this one should be called the Easy West Papua. One should be called the Not-so-Diabolical Tour, because both of them, I think, were diabolical. I was hoping that James Eaton would be on tonight. He lives in Thailand and was supposed to set an alarm to get up. James Eaton owns Bird Tour Asia along with his fellow Englishman, Rob Hutchinson. But evidently his alarm didn't go off. But James Eaton is an incredible person. He wrote this field guide to the birds of Indonesia, Greater Sundas, and Wallacea. Oddly enough, it does not include the birds of West Papua. And more oddly, James has never been to West Papua. So I was going to give him a nod, but he's not here. So like I said, I can say whatever I like, and he can't fact check me. So Indonesia is an equatorial archipelago lying on the equator. And it has been, the country has been formed from the remnants of the Dutch East Indies Company. And the Dutch East Indies Company was in this region for about 200 to 300 years. These are the Spice Islands that the Europeans were looking for, and the Dutch claimed all this land as theirs. Then the Dutch were there until World War II, and the Japanese took over, and the Japanese occupied it for 3 or 4 years and finally got defeated, as we know, by the US. And at that time, Indonesia says, we don't want any more Dutch people here. We're kicking you out and we're going independent. So they claimed their independence in 1946, I believe it was. And it took them another 4 years to actually get the Dutch to agree to give them independence. It's the largest country in Southeast Asia. It's 3,200 miles wide and about 1,200 miles from top to bottom. This is Borneo, and Borneo is divided among 3 countries. The brown, of course, is Indonesia, and Malaysia claims the white, and there's a little country, Brunei, here. So including Borneo and Sumatra and Java, that's the bulk of their landmass. There are some fascinating facts about Indonesia, which I discovered in the last couple of weeks, in that there are 17,500 islands about in this area. 7,000 are uninhabited, and they're probably little rocks sticking out of the ocean. It's the largest country in Southeast Asia, as I said. It's the 4th most populous nation in the world, 250 million people. It has the 3rd largest flourishing democracy. Who knew? It has 200 million Muslims, making it the largest population of Muslims in the world. It has other religions too. It has Christians, it has Buddhists, but the largest part of the population is Muslim. It has the largest economy in Southeast Asia, and is predicted to be the 7th largest in the world by 2030, which are incredible facts about this country that you never even really think about, right? So anyway, we flew down to Jakarta and spent the night there, or 2 nights there, to recover a little bit. And then we, as a group, I believe, we flew over to West Papua, which is it was a red-eye flight. We got in at 7 in the morning. So it was like an overnight flight to West Papua. That's fun. I put this slide in here only because of Lita Penter. So if nobody else wants to pay attention to it, that's fine. But Lita Penter had better listen. Lita Penter was my biology teacher at UNO, and she's a good friend of mine still. But she was very interested in the Wallace line, and the Wallace line was something that a English naturalist in the 1860s came up with. He was at the same time as Darwin, and it's thought that Wallace actually developed some of Darwin's, in other words, Darwin stole some of Wallace's ideas to come up with his theory of evolution. But Wallace was studying and looking at a naturalist in this area, and he noticed that there was a difference in the bird population and the plants and the animals between Sulawesi and Borneo, and then between Bali and Lombok, which is this little area right here. These islands are not very far apart, but there's a line that delineates the Asian species, the purely Asian species, from a mixture of Asian and Austral Asian species, which are found in Australia and New Guinea. And there are deep trenches that come along through here, and it's believed that the depth of the water or something has something to do with the fact that these birds haven't migrated along further to the east or further to the west. This Lydecker line, which is over here, is a line where there are no more Asian species. There's a mixture of Asian species and the Australasian species between Sulawesi and New Guinea and Australia. And because ancient history, and this is ancient history, is this landmass was once connected. This landmass was once connected. So the Asian species could easily move down through Malaysia into here, and the Australian species could move north into New Guinea, and New Guinea species down there. But there was no movement further west or further east of the mixing of the Asian, if that makes sense, Asian and Australasian species. So this is New Guinea, or this is West Papua New Guinea. It's thought to look like a bird's head. So this peninsula is called the Bird's Head Peninsula, or Vogelkop, which is a Dutch term for bird's head. Here's the bird's neck. And the rest of West Papua, this line separates Indonesia from Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is independent. There's an independent movement going on in West Papua where people want to be free from Indonesian influence, and therefore there are areas in West Papua where you cannot go. So we flew from Jakarta to the little island of Biak and started off our birding there. Biak is low, very hot, very tropical, very humid. So miserable. We spent maybe 3 nights on Biak and then flew over to the little town of Sentani, which is outside the big town of Jayapura, and immediately transferred to another flight into Wamena, which is in the Balium Valley. And our plan in Wamena is a high, flat valley surrounded by mountains. Our plan was to go into the snow mountains where they have a lot of endemics, the snow mountain this and the snow mountain that. But unfortunately, the police had the roads closed and would not let you go up there because of
terrorist activity
or whatever. So we didn't get to go to the snow mountains. Instead, we went over into the Star Mountains and did some birding in the Star Mountains. Wamena was cool, so it was a nice refuge from Biak. Spent, I think, 3 or 4 nights there, and then flew to the town of Manokwari and went into the Arfak Mountains, which I think was my favorite place, even though the trails weren't my favorite. And from the Arfak Mountains, we flew to Sarong, did some birding in the rain here in Sarong, and then finally took the fast ferry from Sarong to Wajia, which is the island off this west coast. The fast ferries are the Indonesian fast ferries are the ones that sink all the time from time to time.
Ours didn't sink.
Ours didn't sink. So that was good. This is Bowerbird, who was our bird tour leader from Bird Tour Asia. He's a Malaysian of Chinese descent. And the thing I love about this photograph is that here we have a tarp because, of course, it's raining outside, but yet he's got his umbrella up, sitting under the tarp with his umbrella. And from time to time, he would push the tarp up with his umbrella to get the water that was puddling on the tarp off. So staying dry, taking two things to stay dry, a tarp and an umbrella. Our group was composed of 7 people and then our guide from Bird Tour Asia. So we had 3 Brits, including Ken, Ian, and Tony. We had 1 Canadian who you can't really see in this picture. We had an Alabama woman who was my compatriot. We were the only 2 women on the trip. I mean, an Arkansas woman, I'm sorry. There was an Alabama man, an Arkansas woman, a Louisiana woman, me, a Malaysian guide, and a huge plethora of Papuans to keep us safe and to keep us going. And they did most of all the, made all the arrangements.
Overhauling and everything.
Yeah, so the scenery is gorgeous, as you would expect. A lot of mountains in this area. Some grasslands, which had their own distinct birds to look for. More mountains. We were at this spot, we were actually up on this ridge above the road, and where we took the picture, we could go no further because in Indonesia, they have little villages scattered all throughout the forest, and the little villages are each a different tribe. And they have possession of their own land surrounding their village, and you can only go onto their land with permission. So we would have people, oh wait, James Eaton is just coming in. So someone just let James Eaton in. So James, I didn't say anything bad about you, but I already talked about you. So I'm glad you're with us. So at this point, we got to a certain point where we couldn't go any further because in order to go into another village's territory, you had to have a person from that village with you as a guide. And of course, they would get paid for that. And we didn't. So the way this operated was if we were going through a village, we would actually stop and pick up someone that would allow us to transit through the village. And we were staying in a village at this point, and we always had half the village, I think, was with us to get us around. So incredible scenery. Yes, we bird late in the morning. We bird early in the morning and late in the afternoon. I don't know which one this was. Here are one of the little villages, and they aren't very big, but they are ferocious, and you have to watch out for their boundaries. Sometimes the boundary is only a rock in the road, and we like this rock here, who knows? And we would not know, so that's why you have to have a local who knows that this rock means you cannot get out of your vehicle and bird there. You can only pass through on the road. So this is our little convoy going through this village. Very tropical. So weather-wise, James has never been to West Papua New Guinea, as I think I said. So maybe he hasn't experienced this, but no matter time of day, it would start raining ferociously. And if you were dinner time, lunchtime, breakfast time, that didn't matter. You still had rain. Then you had these nice puddles to maneuver. Here's another meal along the road that they prepared for us in the rain. This was a place that right before we caught the fast ferry, we did a little birding, and we went to this place, which is a beautiful boardwalk through this gorgeous forest. And I just put this sign up saying, you all can pronounce this any way you want, okay? This is the boardwalk going through this gorgeous forest. The story is that there's a village at the end of this boardwalk, which we didn't get to. And they needed access to the road. They didn't have access to the road. And so they got a grant to build this boardwalk for access to get out to the road. And we had permission to walk on their boardwalk. But then this happened on the boardwalk. So we would stand around for, in my case, I was sitting around for a while waiting for the rain to stop. And if you didn't have an umbrella, you could easily just pick up your own. on the side of the trail. This is our Canadian guy, by the way, back there. And then there was this boardwalk, which was another trail that we took. This was interesting to walk on. James, you really need to experience this on your own. But we did find a really nice kingfisher down at the end of this trail. And then the trails, some sort, change form in one way or another. Sometimes you have some boards, some logs to walk over. Sometimes you don't have logs to walk over, but you always have a helping hand. This is Tony, one of the Brits, who's like being pulled up the hillside.
Slurry.
The slurry, Ken says. Here's the
Alabama.
Michael Jordan was his name. He's not related to the basketball player, but here's Michael Jordan from Alabama making his way up the cliff. By the way, Joelle turned around on this. She didn't experience any of this. And then there was a log walking, and the Canadian is saying, I have to go over there. And let's see if this plays. Sure enough, the Canadian had to go across the trail, but again, with lots of help. Always a helping hand. These guys were so good. Ken took this video, by the way.
They would also, you see, there's a little handrail there. That was put off on the spot, basically, by the locals, because we couldn't just walk across that log on our own. So they erected these handrails, which we certainly needed.
And here's Karen over here, patiently waiting her turn to walk the plank. Oops, I don't want that. And then some of the roads were quite interesting. Really, the infrastructure is quite good there, except this one road going out to an area, and this was probably the worst spot that we had, and
nearly got washed out.
Yeah, nearly got washed out. And here is a truck, and you can see, I think this marks the drop off, and he's just making it across. Lodging ranged from the Sublime in Jakarta, and this hotel had wonderful grounds with great birding. We did some birding on our own before the trip actually started. And in Sentani, up in the northeastern corner, was this beautiful hotel. And the hotels, of course, have breakfast buffets like this. The only problem with Bird Tour Asia is you're gone at 4 o'clock in the morning, and these don't open till 6. So I think we only made one of these hotel breakfasts. And instead, our breakfast looked something like this, which was quite nice. The sun was shining. And I thought, maybe a chocolate sandwich would be good for breakfast. Well, not so much. And that same day, we then had lunch on the road. And this was at a very small lumber company. I think it was a man and a woman and maybe another man or something they had built that funky boardwalk because they were cutting trees down there. And they allowed us to use and here's the tarp that Wilbur was sitting under at the beginning. But this was the lunch that was provided for us that day. And one of the local guides that was with us, his wife is the one that cooked the food. So it was quite nice. And then we stayed in an eco lodge down in the lower elevation again, where it was rather warm. It was a very, very attractive eco lodge. And the only problem is, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a fan, so there's no air conditioning down here, but it wasn't as bad as we had.
It was okay.
Yeah, as Ken says, that was okay. But it did have nice outdoor dining, and this was beautiful. And the place that Ken and I actually were worried about was Mingray Village. And we both said, we're not looking forward to the homestay at Mingray Village up in the Arfak Mountains, because I thought actually we'd be staying in people's houses. And this is what the local houses look like. This village is completely turned over to ecotourism. And everybody in the little village, and there probably were 8 or 9 families or something in this little village, had a role in ecotourism. So the women were cooks and they cleaned. You couldn't go in with shoes because they wanted to keep it clean. This was our dining area. Plus there were 3 or 4 rooms in here for people to stay. This may have been Ken's and my cabin. I think it was a little bit further to the right, but these were just some people walking through the village, and they stopped to get some water, and they have machetes and they have bows and arrows with them. This is one of the tourist cabins at night, very attractive. This was our bedroom in our little cabin. This was our living room in our little cabin, and I think the mural on the wall might be algae. And the bathroom was located through here. There was really no furniture, but you didn't need furniture, I guess. But the reason why you go to West Papua is for the birds of paradise. And this slide is mainly for me because I was really confused in the beginning. We started seeing birds of paradise, and they didn't look like what I thought birds of paradise should look like. And I asked Wilbur, I said, my God, this family is so diverse. And I said, you know, shouldn't some of these birds be like taken out? And he said, yeah, some of these birds probably will be taken out of the family Paradisidae. But anyway, so there are 15 genera of birds of paradise, 41 species. We saw maybe 15 or 16 different species on this trip, which is pretty incredible. This is Ken's photograph of the Splendidostrapia. I would not have thought of the Splendidostrapia as being birds of paradise, but anyway, yes, they are. And these are two females. We did see a male eventually, but he was not very photogenic, very far away. But what I thought I would do, since the males are really what most people are interested in, I went to Mr. Google, and I took some photographs off of Mr. Google about what a male looks like. So here, the female Splendidostrapia. Here's the male Splendidostrapia in display. Pretty incredible. Didn't see him. This is a pretty poor picture of Ken's. Mine is even worse, of a king bird of paradise. And by the way, they're called BoPs. If you're in the know, you call them BoPs instead of birds of paradise. It's for short, they're BoPs. So here's a king BoP. And way up in the top of the canopy, light streaming in, kind of backlit or whatever. But you can see two of his wires down here coming off the tail area, and these two little discs that are on the wires. And at least it's a male. So here it is, what Mr. Google sees as a king bird of paradise.
Or Richard Attenborough.
Or Richard Attenborough, right. Or Richard Attenborough. How this bird becomes this bird, I can never figure out. Blue legs seem to be one of the things that knits some of these birds of paradise together. We finally did see some displaying males. This is a lesser BoP. And again, up in the canopy with real bad lighting, but you can sort of make out a green throat and a yellow bit on top of the head. This is the tail of this lesser BoP. And here's the internet photograph of this lesser BoP. Quite spectacular. Ken's very nice photograph of a 12-wired BoP. The only problem with this 12-wired BoP, he does have a red eye, is that he doesn't have his 12 wires. So this was a 12 wireless BoP. So if you look on Mr. Internet, there you go. Here are his 12 wires coming out of his rear end, and quite a spectacular bird. And again, you look at this, it's got all this black showing, and you look at this, and it's just solid yellow. They go through some transformation. But all those BoPs were BoPs that we just saw walking in the forest in the middle of the afternoon or the middle of the morning, and coming into their territory, and that was fine. Problem from now on out is that we had BoPs that you could only see from blinds in the middle of the forest. And
early in the morning.
Early in the morning. And you had to get into the blind before sunrise, because you couldn't disturb. If you disturbed the bird when he was down displaying, then the bird would go away. We would never, ever see it. So in the dark, you had to traverse this trail. And I'll tell you that and then poor Karen followed my suit. I took one step off into this trail over here, and the step was about 3 feet high. Karen told me the next day she thought I had fallen, was sitting on the ground. And I said, no, I was standing up. That's how high the step was. and pitch black. I had 2 hiking poles, which was a mistake, so I couldn't hold on to the railing. I had a flashlight, which was a mistake. I should have had a head torch. And I said, you know what? I said, I can't do this. I'm not going. So I turned around, and Karen said, I'm not going either. So she turned around, and we did not go in this day. But I went back to bed, and well, later on, Karen and I did traverse that trail. This is the trail, and it took 6 guys to get us down this trail. Karen is being held on by like 3. These 2 guys are carrying chairs for us to sit. We were very spoiled. Chairs for us to sit in the blind. And then, of course, you have to turn around and come back up again. This little guy in the middle is Ado. He worked for the local tour company that handled this part of the tour, and he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. He was so helpful. He made sure I had a supply of Coca-Cola the whole time we were there, iced Coca-Cola. So he was a delight. He was with us for the last half of the trip. But you see Karen getting pulled up this trail. But when you make it, then you come to blinds, and they had all sorts of blinds. This trail, you know, had an orange blind. I don't know why. And then you got to sit in the blind, and Karen, she's enjoying herself. It was just Karen and myself in this blind because the guys had gone off someplace else that we didn't go. And then you have to wait and see what comes. But after sitting in a blind for 3 hours or something, and the bird not coming in, you can take a look at the faces of everybody in this photograph. Here's Ken, the Canadian, the 2 Brits. Here's Karen. And they just look thrilled, don't they? And I later told James that sitting in a blind to me for 3 hours is like having a root canal, a 3-hour root canal. That's how it felt like to me. And James kind of agreed with me. I was surprised, but some blinds were open when Tony first, you see his stool is sort of buried. When Tony first sat down, he actually fell into the blind, knocked it down. His camera went flying. So that was funny, but he collected himself. And this is what it looks like outside the blind when someone is inside the blind looking in. Ken got in big trouble for posing for this picture.
Well, you fooled me.
Ian was not happy. He told us we weren't on a vacation. It was like, But from the blind, you see things like this. So this is Ken's photograph of a magnificent rifle bird. This was really phenomenal shot of this bird who was displaying on a log. So this guy likes to display on a log on the ground. The magnificent bird of paradise. And the funny story behind this is we had kind of gotten to a place and we were looking, I guess we're in a blind, and this bird flew into this root structure, which is where he does his display. And Ken says, I can't find this bird. I don't see this bird. And he kept going, I don't see this bird. And oh man, the rest of the trip is like, I didn't even see this bird. Well, this is Ken's photograph of the bird. So even though he didn't see the bird, his camera saw the bird and he got a picture of it, and he got a much better picture than I got. Here is Mr. Google's view of that bird of paradise. So not only does it have a blue and green, green inside of his bill with blue on the bill, he's got wires too that come off of his rear end and blue legs. This is a bird I didn't see because I didn't go. It's a long-tailed Paradigala, another, of course, a BoP, Ken's photograph. And this is some artwork of what the long-tailed Paradigala looks like. This was voted #1 bird for the trip. So this is a Western Parodia. And my photograph of the male, and Ken and I, we were in separate blinds, 2 different areas, and Ken's photograph of the male dancing. And then Ken's photograph of the male in his full regalia dancing. My photograph of my guy still on the perch in my blind.
The bird is spinning around like a top. It's just amazing.
Mr. Google got this shot. This is the female Western Parodia. That was the male. This is the female Western Parodia. And those guys were displaying outside the blind. And these females were like a quarter of a mile away from where the males were and could care less about what was going on down there. But this is a seed feeder. This is the fruit off of a specific palm tree that's put out to attract birds, and they eat the little red seeds that are on this fruit. The black-billed sicklebill, another bop, came in, and this black-billed sicklebill has a baby with it that was quite hungry. And that sicklebill had a real hard time getting the seeds off. This is what the male, those are females. This is what the males look like. This is the bird that we saw was this female. And let me see, I have a video. If I can find out how to start the video, it's not coming up. Why isn't it not coming up?
Well, this.
No, that's not it. This thing is really in my way. I wish I could get rid of it. Oh, that's too bad if the video won't play. Oh, there it goes. So this is the female feeding her baby. And she struggles like crazy to get those seeds off. She finally says, the heck with it. This is too hard. Not worth it. Baby says, feed me. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. This is what the male sicklebill does to attract his girlfriend. Does this very odd pose against a post. We had a black-billed sicklebill that came in along with a female western Parodia. This is the female that we just saw. This is the male counterpart. Gorgeous. This is the courtship behavior of that male sicklebill. I can figure out where the tail is. I can figure out maybe where the wings are, and I guess this is his back. The head's somewhere up in there, and here are his legs. So what a position to get yourself into, all for a woman. And the western, the Wilson's bop. This is my photograph. You can make out. It reminded me of a turtle. But anyway, you make out the bill, you make out the top of the head here, and all these plaques, like plaques of a turtle. And he has these little wires coming out that are turned around. This is Mr. Google's photograph of the Wilson's bop. Really a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. The Crescent Cape Lofarina, probably not pronouncing that right, or Volgocop's Lofarina, was another special. This was really the one bird I wanted to see displaying. And he did this, which was nice. But what he didn't do was this. And I think this is what everyone thinks about of a displaying bird of paradise. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we got this. And like I said, was he rated #1? No, he wasn't rated #1. But that, Mr. Google. Ken's photograph of the red bop. Wait until you see this. We didn't see it, but pretty spectacular. The nice thing, James, maybe the only nice thing about walking down those trails through the forest at night when you have a lot of Papuans with you who have eyes that can see in the dark, is you find all sorts of critters sleeping. So here's a butterfly that was found along one of the trails. Here's a little bat that was found along one of the trails. Here is a golden monarch right at the very tip of the branch. I wonder why he just hangs on to the tip of the branch. Here's a gerygony, but no one could identify this gerygony because his head was tucked. So Wilbur said he needed to see the head before he could identify the species of gerygony. And the piece de resistance, I think, was this Papuan eagle. And Wilbur wasn't even sure what he was. He knew it was an eagle, or he knew it was a raptor of some kind. And it took him a while to realize it was a Papuan eagle. It's genus Harpiogensis, Harpio. Never mind. And it's sometimes called the Papuan harpy eagle. And this is Wilbur Go's photograph, which I stole without permission from his trip report. But forget the birds of paradise. Yeah, they're nice. And you can find and look at videos and stuff, but this is the bird of the trip, and he did not come in the top 1, 2, 3. He was voted number 4.
Your bird.
This was my bird of the trip, yes. And you say, well, Joelle, you're a little crazy because look at this ugly brown bird. I mean, what can you say? I mean, why are you picking this bird out of all the others? Because bowerbirds, as you probably know, build a bower out of sticks. It's genetically entrenched into each different species as to what kind of bower they build, and then they decorate their bower. And if they're way back in the forest someplace, they'll decorate it with maybe some rocks and some leaves and what other colorful thing, berries that they can find. This guy was right very close to Mingray village, and he had a plethora of stuff to decorate his bower with. So here's his bower that he builds and maintains, and then he has stolen everything he gets his hands on. These are water bottle caps that he has stolen. These are some other yellow caps he probably got from people's houses or, you know, in their yards, trays that they were using. He's got buckets. He has cups. He has saucers. And even over here, he has kids' toys. And I asked Ado, I said, what were the toys that he had? He says, well, one thing was an erector, you know, a little toy, a little digger that the little kid would play with that, you know, had a little bucket that came down. And so, and Ado said, you know, I mean, of course, these birds can't fly with this amount of stuff in their bills. So he would have to drag this stuff through the forest from the village. And that terrible trail that I showed you, that's what you take to get to this bower. So he would have to drag all this stuff. He's got potato chip bags, he's got garbage bags, but this is all done to his arrangement, and he keeps it as neat as possible. These are kind of iridescent, and they were the carapaces of beetles. So either he ate a lot of beetles and then brought the shells back to, you know, the carapaces back to decorate. And this black stuff was some sort of glass type things that was kind of shiny. So here, just a close up. These are some kids' toys. Looks like a bunny rabbit or something, and buckets, huge buckets. And the amazing thing is, look at the arrangement. So he's got some bowls here and then upside down, and then he's got the cups stacked upside down on his bowls. Got an orange bowl. I don't know what that is. This is the carapaces from the beetles. And if you go in, this is Ado's rear end. Sorry, Ado. If you go in and you mess up his arrangement, because he's very fussy, so Ado put a yellow cap here. He also put a red cap someplace else. He messed up his arrangement and then came back to the blind. And sure enough, that bird came in and looked around and said, something ain't right here. You know, something's happened. So he starts to rearrange what Ado had done and picks up stuff that's out of place. There's a red cap, doesn't belong. Okay, I put it there. Yellow cap, not in the right place. Nope, I don't like that. Nope. Got it. No, stick doesn't belong there. Get rid of it. And every now and then he would look up to see if he had a female, you know, if he attracted a female. Nope, she never came. Nope, blue cap out of place. Sounds like it's raining, doesn't it?
It was.
That's a shell from the beetle, I believe. So you have to admit, that is one incredible bird. So there are a whole bunch of other things besides bowerbirds and birds of paradise that we picked up on. The total bird list, I think, was 305 species, although I didn't see nearly that many. Ken's photograph of this Pacific baza, a Papuan swamp harrier. Victoria crown pigeon, the Ken's photograph. This bird, I think, was difficult for Ken to see.
Yeah, but did you get one of Tony's?
So, no, I didn't put Tony's in. So when they were down crossing all those logs and climbing up that hillside and all that kind of crazy stuff, they were going after this bird. And Wilbur had said, you know, we don't have a stakeout for this bird. We're just going to wander around down there until we, you know, hopefully we bump into it. And that's when Joelle said, Joelle's going to wander on back the 4 kilometers up the trail instead. Thank goodness. And then I still wasn't with him when they saw this, but this bird has a beautiful, beautiful little crest that you could barely see in this photograph. But the next day or so, we came across this western crown pigeon, and you can see a little bit better of the crest. Unfortunately, these are some rattan branches that are covering the bird, but you can see a little bit of the crest of the crown pigeon. Just really amazing. And fruit doves, if you ever bird Asia, fruit doves are just this beautiful, beautiful collection of birds of marvelous colors. The colors on this coroneted fruit dove is incredible, as this claret-breasted fruit dove. Cuckoo dove, well, what can you say? Brown. Imperial pigeons. Ben King, who was my favorite leader before James, did not like pigeons, and he called them imperial pigs. So, but this is the pine non-imperial pigeon, and Ken's crazy photograph of this bird as it dropped off of its perch. Zoe imperial pigeon, lousy photograph of mine, bad lighting. Cuckoo family, the dwarf coel, which is found throughout Asia. And marbled frogmouth kind of buried in this tree. This was a day roost for it. 2 really spectacular birds were the mountain owlet nightjar and the feline owlet nightjar, something I think we've heard about for a long, long time, this bird, but never expected to see.
Yeah.
And these were found, these are on day roost, and they were found by the local Papuans that were with us. That it was incredible how they found these birds. I couldn't even find this bird having it pointed out to me. I mean, it took me, I don't know how long to finally see it, and it was right in front of your face. Kingfishers. So kingfishers, the Western Hemisphere, North, South, Central America have really been left out of the kingfisher crowd. So we have, what, 6 species of kingfisher? There are something like 118 species of kingfisher in the world. And Asia and Australia, Africa, you know, have this great plethora of kingfishers. I think there are 60-some kingfishers in Indonesia.
And a lot of them are forest birds rather than water birds.
Yeah. So paradise kingfishers have a fancy tail on their bottoms. This is another kookaburra, not the laughing kookaburra of Australia, but rufous-bellied kookaburra. Beach kingfisher, yellow-billed kingfisher, pretty blurry.
High up in a tree.
Papuan dwarf kingfisher, mountain kingfisher. And the list goes on and on and on with the kingfishers. It's just a remarkable group of birds that, as I said, the New World got gypped on. Beautiful bee eaters. Bly's hornbill. Ken's photo of the palm cockatoo. Think of cockatoos with Australia, right? The relationship. Pygmy parrots, which are adorable little teeny birds, 3 inches long or something.
Just a bit bigger than a sparrow, but a sparrow, not much bigger.
Big parrots aren't too much bigger than that. Black-cap lories. This guy has his wings out, but he's behind the branch, unfortunately. Ken's photograph of the black-cap lory. aptly named with a black cap. Rainbow lorikeet. Tiger parrots. Pittas, everybody loves Asian pittas, right? This is a beautiful biak. This is the first little island we went to, right? Biak, hooded pitta. This is the Papuan pitta. Has a leaf in front of it, but anyway. Firebirds are very, very common in Australia and also in New Guinea. Honey eaters, which is a huge group of birds in the Australasian complex. So it's this is the common smoky honey eater, Papuan tree creeper, ornate melodectes. So some of these names are really mouthfuls, but I think this is the generic name. Really cute. Vogelkop, again, there's that Dutch word, scrub wren. A longbill. Lowland peltops.
It's a long way away.
The Biak triller and then the Balium whistler. I only put this in because of its name, the Raja Ampat Pitui. And it was a nice bird. This was at the last place we had visited. Good old Willie Wagtail that's found throughout Australia. A thicket fantail. They have a lot of fantails over there. This is my photo of the thicket fantail, which kind of blends in. Here's his mouth wide open singing. His tail is down here and he's kind of hidden in this bush. Monarch flycatcher, right?
Yeah.
With a bare eye. Golden monarch, another flycatcher. Blue-gray robin, greenback robin. You know, our robin's not a robin, right? Our robin is a thrush. So here are the true robins. Ken's very lovely red-capped flowerpecker. A beautiful finch. White-shouldered fairy wren. Fairy wren, again, an Australasian complex bird, along with great-billed manakins or moonias. So this is our fast ferry to Wasai. We're kind of winding down there, and even getting on board the ferries is difficult. So you have two techniques. You have the Canadian here who decided to do the side step, and Ken did the crab step, and he went down that way. We were in the VIP section of the ferry, which was nice. It was about a 2.5 hour ferry ride. They Ado made sure we had lunch with us. We had a box lunch. I made the mistake of going to the head. Do not ever go to the head on an Indonesian ferry, even in the VIP section. But anyway, after that ride, we came to our Raja Ampat Dive Resort. This area of Indonesia is known for its diving, the quality of the diving. And this is Karen in her room, and our room was over here. We were next door. Beautiful, beautiful outdoor dining. Everybody else was eating under here where it was kind of hot, and Ken and I ate by ourselves out here where there was a cool breeze, and this was the view from our dining table with my finger looking out over the beautiful water. We caught a boat one of these days that took us to some other smaller islands offshore, and just walking out the pier and looking into the water was incredible what you could see. Here's our little boat trip going to one of the smaller islands offshore. And we were surrounded actually on the way back by this pod of maybe 60 false killer whales. It's actually a species of dolphin and not a whale. I didn't realize that killer whales weren't whales, but were also dolphins. But this is a view of just walking down that pier, or any pier, over the water. The water is fairly shallow, and you would see these beautiful fish and other things, which I don't know what they are. So this is just taking a shot looking over the rail. This is a clam, right? That's open and feeding. Another clam that's open and feeding. What colors? We had a black-tip shark swim by the
Very small.
Yeah. Blue sea star. Then when we got on the island, we had some familiar things like this osprey, a lesser frigate bird, beautiful crow, blue-eyed crows called Teresian crows, eclectus parrot. I think this is Ken's photograph. I didn't give him credit for it. Spice imperial pigeon or pig. Beautiful array of butterflies. This is a fruit, small, grape size perhaps,
Yeah,
but the bluest of blue.
Most unusual.
Local people who were incredible. This was a guy that was with our ground agent, our local tour company, and this was a lady that lived in the village that we were walking through her grassland.
Note the phone.
Yeah, note the phone in her hand. We came back to this grassland the next day, and a man just really yelled at us. We had no idea what he was saying, but he wanted us to get off his land.
Wasn't happy.
No, he wasn't happy that we were there. These are some of the locals that were a tremendous, tremendous help. I was assigned, this fella is the one that found the owlet night jars, and his eyes, I mean, just incredible what they can see through this dense, dense, dense vegetation. This was one of my helpers. We were assigned early on. I got assigned someone to help me. Karen got assigned a couple people to help her. Ken got assigned somebody. Didn't realize it at first, but they were always there, you know, to catch you as you were falling. And this guy was my savior. Just some of the locals from the different villages with their bows and arrows and machetes. This lady was bartering some of her goods. Roving grocery store. Here's Ken seeing what he can buy. Eggs, almost anything you could want on the back of this motorcycle to sell to people that are living in the boonies. These photographs were on the wall of the hotel in Santani and showing what the, I don't know, this umbrella didn't quite fit in there, but showing what the local dress actually was like. They wore these sheaths. I love this one, but
That's a classic photo.
this is at one of the airports. So Ken really, really went native on this trip, as you can see. I mean, he went whole hog native. Joelle, on the other hand, just kind of melted into the background. And there was a saving grace for her in that there was a ready supply of Coca-Cola, but only once could she get a Magnum, which was, you know, my big treat. And my other big treat when I travel is Pringles. But the flavor Pringles that they sell here is seaweed Pringles. And so I didn't really try. So from snowy New Orleans, thank you so much for attending. This is out of our bedroom window with our poor little birds sitting in the snow. So thank you so much.